I'm here to give the key insights and takeaways from this book, How to Become a Data Analyst by Annie Nelson. Annie describes how she went from being an occupational therapy graduate student to landing her first data analyst role. She did it in 6 months and for less than $100. However, Annie is very realistic. She has a section where she discusses how difficult it is to get into data analytics, and this is what she says here. Becoming a data analyst is hard work. Anybody who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you a course or gain you as a follower. It took me 6 months of hard work and less than $100 to become a data analyst. I've seen others who read every piece of content I put out, took all my advice, and did it in less than 3 months for about the same cost. I have also seen people who took 6 months to get through a course that I finished in 1 month, and others who applied to hundreds of jobs for 4 more months without getting a job. Once we've decided that we want to make the transition to data analytics, the next question is how? There are multiple different paths to getting that first role as a data analyst, and I'm going to go through the ones that Annie talks about in her book. The first option, and in some ways the easiest option, if you can, is to have an analytics adjacent role. So if you're in a role that's not a data analyst role, but you have access to some data and you can start doing some analysis with that data, then you can basically say, well, I'm already doing the work of a data analyst. I've already learned the skills on the job of a data analyst. Now I just want the title. And actually I was watching a YouTube video where someone had been a warehouse worker, and he actually got access to some of the warehouse data and started to do some analysis with that data, and he used that to transition to a data analyst role. The next is to get a data analyst degree. And this is the most expensive path, obviously. A degree program is usually going to be upwards of $10,000, could be upwards of $50,000 or $100,000 if you're talking about a 4-year degree at a private university, right? And so this is best if you have the time and the financial resources, and also if you're the sort of person that needs the accountability of a degree program, right? There's a little bit more accountability because you're expected to go to class, you're expected to take the exams. There's a sort of cadence to that, right? In my particular case, I took a master's degree from NC State's Advanced Analytics program, and that was actually a very good program because they brought employers to campus. And when I was in the program, almost 100% of the students graduated with a job offer, and in many cases, multiple job offers, right? And so in that case, it was a big financial investment. I think it was $40,000 or more, but then almost everyone who came out of the program had seen at least a $25,000 a year jump in salary. And so that was actually a good trade-off, expensive, time consuming. It meant you had to stop work because it was a full-time program, but can be very effective for some people, right? Especially if you're in a good program that really has a good career counseling program and will bring employers to your campus, and those employers are hiring students, right? So you have to ask that question, does this degree really have the return on my investment? The next option is the bootcamp. So that's going to be a shorter time commitment and less money typically than a degree. Maybe a few months, maybe $5,000 to $10,000. It's going to vary. So you can shop around. When you look at these programs, make sure you look at the fine print. For example, if there is a job placement guarantee, make sure you know what things you need to do to activate that guarantee. So you will get your money back if you don't get a job if you do the following things. Look down that whole list of things and think about whether you can actually do all of those things. So that would be one. The other thing is ask the question, are students finishing this program getting job offer? That is the other thing, because if you're spending that money, you want to make sure that it's a good investment. The next option is DIY, and that's Annie's option. That's how Annie did it. It's basically to use low cost and free resources, and this is best if you're the sort of person that is highly self-motivated and able to learn on your own. This is not good if you're the sort of person that needs your hand held through the process, but you're the sort of person who's comfortable with researching things, finding the best resources, choosing between different resources, building your own path, and being accountable just because you're highly motivated and want to do it yourself. There's one more path to becoming a data analyst that's not called out in Annie's book, but I do want to mention it because I teach there, and that is CourseCareers. The data analytics program at CourseCareers is 1/10 the cost of many boot camps. It's $500 instead of $5,000. But it provides teaching assistance and office hours, and coaches so that when you do a project, you can get feedback on it and then improve that project, right? And so that when you build your resume, you can get feedback on your resume, right? So there's more options with CourseCareers to get basically guidance along the way, as well as, of course, the standard entry-level data analytics curriculum with exercises and projects. Which of the paths is actually best for you? I like what Annie said in her book. She says, I find that people who are more interested in the benefits of working in data and maybe not as psyched about the actual data learning and work may benefit from a more structured hands-on education that you get in a boot camp. In other words, if you are highly motivated, you can do something that's closer to the DIY approach. If you need to be in like a program that says this is when the assignment is due, if you don't do it, you're kicked out, right? That kind of a thing that's more regimented, then think about the boot camp or degree. If you're more of a self-starter, then more on the DIY side is better. After Annie discusses the different ways you can transition to data analytics, she then goes into a lot of detail about all of her steps for the DIY approach. And so that's what we're going to talk about next. The first thing is the training itself, to take the courses so that you have the foundational skills in the technical tools, right? So that's Excel, SQL, and Tableau or Power BI. Python is not typically required for entry-level roles, and so we leave that off, even though, yes, that is a tool data analysts use, right? But the fundamental tools are Excel, SQL, and a visualization tool, either Tableau or Power BI. And so what you want to do is you want to look for classes that have exercises and projects, not just videos. Classes that will show the skills, but then actually let you practice them with a data set. That is the most important thing. And also hopefully a responsive instructor so that if people are asking questions, they get responses. So that's the first step, is to gain those basic knowledge of how to use the tools. The next step then is to build a portfolio. And I think that this is the step that most people might leave out. And actually, when Annie started her journey, she really just went from taking some courses to trying to apply for positions. And she realized she needed to go back and build a real portfolio. And so she spends a lot of time discussing how to find data sets, how to think about your portfolio, how to build it up, and also what the purpose of a portfolio is. So the idea is that a portfolio would be a set of a few projects you've done to answer questions and present those answers, right? And say, this is an example of what my analytics looks like. Here, I like how she explains the reasoning for the portfolio. She says, if you don't have any data analytics experience, creating a portfolio is the best thing you can do for yourself as a job seeker. When I started my search, I had a very weak portfolio. But when I started investing in my portfolio, the number of responses and interviews I got started going up. You know what the difference was? It was this. Spending time building my portfolio showed me what it would be like to be a data analyst. It gave me ideas for what I could put into my resume and gave me all kinds of new things to talk about in my phone screens and interviews. So it's not so much necessarily that you'd show the portfolio to the person you're interviewing with, although that might happen, but more likely it's basically the closest thing you can get to experience if you haven't actually been paid to work as a data analyst, right? Is to say, well, I haven't been paid to work as a data analyst, but I've done these data analytics projects, right? And that's more closer to working as a data analyst than just taking courses, right? If you do those projects, then you can talk about them during your interviews. And so Annie gives just a ton of great resources for how to find the right data set, how to start building up those projects, because it's a sort of an open-ended thing to build a portfolio. You're like, where do I start? There's a million data sets on the internet. She said she tried Kaggle and that didn't work, so she has some other resources, and I'll include some of those as links. There's a big section on creating a portfolio, and that's the one that out of all of them, I would highlight as the one to look at because you're not going to find that in a general career guide. And so the next section talks about how to optimize LinkedIn and your resume. And I think most of what comes in this section is things that you probably know if you read general career guides, right? So the first one is make sure your LinkedIn has a good profile photo, good professional headshot. The next one is for your headline, don't say something like, aspiring data analyst. Just data analyst is better because aspiring data analyst makes it seem like you've got imposter syndrome. If you're able to do data analytics, you're a data analyst. It's fine. You can put that. And then add your coursework to your LinkedIn profile. You want to put that in there. I liked also what Annie did. She said she created an Annie's analytics page on LinkedIn and set that as her current employer. And so she listed it as freelance and specified there that she was learning. So there's things that you can do like that to make it look like you're sort of already working in the data analytics space without being dishonest. You create a professional resume, which is highlighting your analytics experience and any roles where you used any data to any extent. You don't want to put your babysitting job. You want to talk about, you really want to highlight, this is the training related to data. These are my portfolio projects related to data. Put as much as possible about that. And then any work experience that you've had that had any connection to data at all. And so once you do that, you want to start applying to positions and following up with the hiring managers and HR people by email, by LinkedIn, right? So that you're trying to make those direct contacts, right? And when you contact them, you want to mention, I'm interested in this position, and by the way, here's something cool that I did, right? Talk about your portfolio projects. Annie also suggests considering using ChatGPT to help you write cover letters. And so if you're going to do that, you need to write really detailed prompts, and you still will need to edit it, but that can be something to help. And then you're going to be doing these applications, and hopefully you'll be hearing back from some number of employers. And so Annie found that it was a big surprise. The whole interviewing process was very different from what she'd experienced previously. And so if you haven't done tech interviews before, basically you're in for a longer process than you'd be expecting. You need to expect a phone screen. That's kind of the initial, is the salary range realistic? Do you understand what the position entails? Like, are you, if it's a hybrid role or a local role or a remote role, do you understand that? Those basic things. And then they'll go on to do multiple rounds of interviews after that initial phone screen. Typically, there'll be some technical interviews and some behavioral interviews and possibly a panel interview and like culture fit interviews. So there could be possibly like 4 or more rounds. One of my students was just hired and he went through 4 rounds of interviews before he got the job offer. So that's very typical. Don't expect that it'll be one conversation and then you get a job offer. That can happen if you have like maybe a long conversation with a hiring manager and everything goes really well, but that's definitely the rarity. Also, you want to come into those interviews having practiced your answers to the behavioral questions and having done some practice on like SQL questions, on Tableau interview questions. And you also want to have researched the company that you're applying for. You want to know as much as possible that's available online about that company. And if you know the person you're going to be interviewing with, it doesn't hurt to look them up as well. So you're coming in with as much information as possible so that you can ask good questions about the company. Before I close this out, I want to talk about the benefits that Annie's received from doing the transition to data analytics. And I'm going to save the best for last. The first one is that she's doing work that she enjoys so much that she actually does data analytics outside of her working hours. She actually does it for fun, posting things on TikTok, LinkedIn, other places, right? So that's the first one. The next one is that she gets all these benefits from working from home. For example, she was able to set up a treadmill desk in her own office, which you probably couldn't do in a regular office, right? She's able to use her kitchen. She's able to take a walk down her street when she wants, right? She's able to travel and continue to work while traveling. Basically, her schedule is very flexible as long as she attends the required meetings and does a good job on her projects. If she starts work a little later, works on the weekends, different hours that are not 9 to 5, but works when it works best for her. If she's not feeling well, she'll start a little later, for example. Like she has that flexibility, so she really enjoys that. But the third benefit that she received, I think, is the biggest one, which is, I can't even exactly describe it. I think I'm going to use her own words here to explain the benefit that she got. What she says is, there is something unique about realizing that you can use the power of the internet and your own brain to learn a whole new career. Once I realized that I can learn and do it almost for free, I felt unstoppable. If I can teach myself a whole new career in data analytics, then what can't I learn? That's my favorite part from the whole book, but you should go and read the whole book. You should read it when you're thinking about doing a transition to data analytics. And then as you go through the steps, you should read the different sections for those steps. Thank you so much for your time.